Yo, yo, yo! Welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host, Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the ghastly demised himself, Reese.
Hello.
Before we start, please do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button and follow button so you never miss an upload. This also helps with the algorithm for us to get exposure. It's a really great way to support us for absolutely free. So, pal, we've had a good week.
Yeah.
You want to start?
Yeah. So obviously the Northern Pauper Open was this weekend. I guess before that I played our local F&M, which was sweet. And then we both headed down to Leeds, which is quite far for us actually. It's like 3 hours. And played in the Northern Pauper Open. I ended up playing Selka's Kuldotha list, which was very good. And ended up coming 12th. With a very unlucky loss to Blue Black Terror and a misplay to Gardens that probably cost me that game as well. But yeah, very, very good day, and we'll talk about it more below, I guess, or later on.
I do find it quite. Obviously, I clearly need to come down and play. I needed to come down and play more Pauper in paper because misplaying against Gardens as well, a deck that I'd obviously played a lot.
Yeah.
I'll take that one. I'll take the loss. It's my fault for not coming down, which made the misplay, obviously.
It was more of a frustrated misplay as well, which makes it worse because I don't normally get frustrated at stuff like that either. So
nothing worse than a frustration misplay, to be fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Reece said, obviously we went to the Northern Pauper Open, myself included, and I was on Mogwarts as I kind of and ahed as well what to play. I ended up on Mogwarts. My only concern mainly was the red matchup. The Kuldotha red matchup. But I felt pretty well positioned and I knew what I was doing in some of the matchups as long as I could dodge the red, just because they have the aggression and the removal. Yeah, and turned out it obviously paid off. There was only 2 pilots of the Kuldotha, which obviously we'll touch on further down in the podcast. But yeah, it was a good weekend. Before we obviously dive right into all the challenges and the Northern Pauper Open and stuff, we will just touch on the tournament news, if you're alright with that.
Yeah.
So there is a Pauper 2K, which is on the 24th of February in Binghamton, New York. That is 4 days away, so it's Saturday. There's a guaranteed $2,000 prize pool to the top 8 and goes to top 16 if they receive 50 or more players. So be really cool to go check that out. There is a 100 player cap, so if you would like to go, please see the description below for all event information and get your tickets. Callie's still in the country of the UK, God's country, so he will not be there. But just thought I'd let you know, just in case someone is going to get their Weather the Storm signed, like I did. Other than that, there is Come On Magic in Poland. I think it is Poland, Warsaw, I believe.
That is Poland, yeah.
Yeah. My geography is terrible. Is back and it is in the 9th and 10th of March, a whole Pauper weekend. I believe there is a Pauper main event and a Pauper trios. So check out the link in the description for more details to look at attending. Seems like a very good and very well run event. We have covered their top 8s before in the past. So again, so check them out. We obviously won't be going because we're not planning on going to Poland anytime soon. Other than that, there is a surge of UK events, so they keep popping up, and Pauper Dan is the man for sharing those, so please check out his Twitter to just give him a follow. He'll be retweeting any of the UK events that he can. I guess finally to touch on, they have announced Pauper Nationals is happening in the UK, which is in November. Dates to be confirmed. The month has been confirmed. They are just avoiding Paupergeddon and the pre-release. So once they've discovered what date those are, obviously the date will be confirmed. This will be in Sheffield at Patriot Games and will be a whole weekend event, I believe, with a 110 player capacity. So it'll be absolutely awesome. And I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely be going to that one.
And that is the news. Would you care to move on to the Saturday the 17th challenge?
Yeah. So it was a 59 player challenge. Just missing the 64 cutoff of the bigger prize pool challenges. So I guess we're not getting them back anytime soon for the Saturday at least. It was a pretty interesting top 10 to be honest. First place was Mogwarts, again piloted by Hamuda, who was on absolute tear.
Yep.
Second place was FAMS. Third place was Jeskai Ephemerate. Fourth place was Flickertron. Fifth place was Cycle Storm. Sixth place was Turbo Fog. Seventh was Corgates. Eighth was Turbo Fog. And then the two near misses. Ninth was Rakdos Madness, piloted by Weber. And 10th was White Weenie. So a really interesting top 8 overall. It's obviously super heavy on combo, which is something we've not really seen in quite a while in Pauper. A couple of control decks sneaking in there still, and then a couple of aggressive decks just in the near misses. But yeah, a very weird one. It's very, very rare we see that much combo and that variety of combo as well. It wasn't just like all Turbo Fog. You've obviously got Mogwarts, FAMS, the Cycle Storm, and the Turbo Fog all making it in.
Yeah, obviously nice to see Cycle Storm making a comeback as well.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting to see as well. It seems to just like it's got nothing new. It's pretty stock list. It's just obviously made a resurgence. And isn't is it Tyrube who usually ends up playing the Cycle Storm? I believe it was a different pilot as well, just rocking in with yeah, it wasn't. So pretty stock list. Like it's very much I think Epic Storms, Brian Cook, that's a gentleman. His name, his list with the he had his ploy and things like that. Nothing too exciting and pretty cool to see. Yeah, which is
nice to see Weber on something outside of Fair as well.
Yeah, we've obviously been covering this on the past few weeks. To be fair, that he needs to pick up something else because well, obviously Fair's not doing well, and then he picks up Rakdos Madness and just misses out.
Yeah.
So pretty cool to see. And with new cards as well, I believe. I think they had a one-of Demand Dancers. Obviously not many, but one-of Demand Dancers in the main board, which is pretty cool.
It's nice, really, to see this deck sort of come back a bit. It placed in one of the later challenges as well, which was a very similar list. But it seems like Goblin Tomb Raider has sort of give it enough of a push to be able to have that aggressive slant, and then the Demand Dancers obviously is still a bit in a trial phase, but it seems like it fits really well into the deck.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think the thing that interests me as well is why I'm quite surprised how low they are in Scrapwork Mutt, especially with Demand Dancers. It works really well because obviously Demand Dancers struggles to sacrifice creatures, but with Scrapwork Mutt it kind of doesn't. So you can unearth it and then obviously sacrifice it to before it dies to unearth. Obviously get 2 cards out of it, which I've always found like a pretty nice interaction. Obviously it's quite mana intensive, but hopefully people can explore with this list further because Madness hasn't really appeared for quite a while, and then I think Demand Dancers has made people not necessarily give the deck a new life, but make people remember it's a deck and at least experiment with it, especially with Tomb Raider now, since obviously Swift Spear is being banned.
Yeah.
So it's definitely
it definitely fits more this deck as well, the Tomb Raider, more than Swift Spear.
Yeah.
Because you can just like chip away and like play a few guys. You don't have to play everything first and go all in.
Yeah, definitely exactly what you're saying there, because this deck doesn't really tend to. It feels like it doesn't like to burn in there, in like I say, as you're attacking, like Cold Author does, or Cold Author did.
Yeah, especially when you're doing stuff like discarding Arms of the Vein to blood tokens and stuff like that. You sort of want to wait until like the end of their turn. Like, oh, I don't have to burn them. I'll discard and utilize this now while I can.
Yeah.
Whereas the Swift Spear sort of meant, right, I have to do it all now. And then if they've got something, it goes badly for me.
Yeah, exactly that. Because even doing it like at the end of your turn, like when they go, oh, I'm free to Lorien Revealed or Troll or all this sort of stuff or whatever it might be, when the mana's down, like definitely is you like having that instant speed, and it definitely does Tomb Raider definitely helps not
Mm.
commit into that, which is pretty sweet. Nice to see White Weenie.
Yeah.
Just missing out, obviously, but pretty stock list looking at it. Obviously, utilising the new Novice Inspector with total of 7 Thraben Inspector effects. No surprise there. Thraben Inspector is the best one drop in Pauper, clearly, and 7 of them or 8 of them is definitely a good thing to have.
Yeah, I think especially seeing how well the Boros deck that Kirby played has been doing. Just playing loads of Thraben Inspectors is good. Like it just does work.
Yeah.
So White Weenie picking that up as well is not a surprise.
For sure. I don't think there's anything else I really want to talk about. Obviously, Jeskai Ephemerate and Flickertron seem to be pretty well positioned in this field of combo and control-y mid-range. So, no surprise there seeing them sort of appear. And I don't think there were any sort of surprises with like the deck list or anything.
You just have to get the right type of person to want to play Jeskai Ephemerate in a challenge.
Yeah, that is for sure. One thing I definitely couldn't do.
Do you want to move on to the Sunday?
Yeah, let's move on.
Or the first Sunday challenge, I guess. As we still have the extra challenge. So Sunday the 18th of February, fired with 69 players.
Nice.
First place was Golgari Gardens. Second place was Jeskai Glitters, but with 4 serpents, Gearseeker serpents in. Third was Blue Black Fair. Fourth was Ponza, making a return. Fifth was Boris Synth. Sixth was Blue Black Fair again. Seventh was Kuldotha. Eighth was Flickertron. And then the near misses. Ninth was Blue White Glitters. And 10th was Boros Glitters. So another very varied and quite interesting top 8, or top 10. Both top 10s have had 9 unique decks, with just the double Blue Black Fae in this one. But it seems to have gone in sort of a completely different direction to the Saturday challenge, whereas the Saturday challenge was super combo heavy. This is like just mid-range central. With the aggro sort of keeping up at the rear, as it was on Saturday, I guess.
Yeah.
With the weenie and the madness, it's now the double glitters deck just in 9th and 10th. But yeah, just stacks of mid range and every different deck you could think of, really. Even Ponza making a comeback, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. What? First of all, Ponza, why am I always a week out with these hot takes? What? Why? Well, I guess 2 weeks because last week we didn't really do any new hot takes or whatever. But like the deck's pretty interesting and pretty well. I'd say pretty overall not badly positioned at the moment. But
it's I guess it's interesting to see it come back.
Yeah.
To me, because it's not even gained anything. Like it's not changed. It's still just what you would imagine as a stock Ponza list of 4 months ago. There's nothing really new.
Yeah.
Like what the newest card is, the Generous End from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Not even pick your poison either in the sideboard.
No,
like, literally nothing.
In the sideboard is just as you would have expected it months ago. So interesting to see it come back.
Yeah.
I guess especially in this challenge where it did slant to the sort of mid-rangey decks doing well. It sort of makes sense that Ponza would rise to the top of that. It's got a good mid-rangey matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, like mid-rangey, not even like I felt like Grixis mid-range. Either it's like, like Golgari Gardens, Blue Black Fair, Flickertron, Boros Synth. These are like the perfect things you want to kind of hit. Like you really target, and like obviously your threats go above Boros Synth and all that sort of stuff. It's like I'd say a really overall well-positioned deck for that field. So I'm not really surprised that it kind of reached top 4. But it is obviously a deck that it is its own worst enemy. Hitting a wild growth off an annoyed Altasaur is not a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the interesting thing, I guess, this monster or the Jeskai Glitters. Monster Glitters is what the pilot has referred it to, effectively with 4 Gearseeker Serpents. And I believe that is the only change to it. It's still like a Glinthawk Glinthawk and Experimental Synthesizer build. 2-2 split on Thraben and Novice Inspector. The standard got a dot. It's the amount of, I don't know how many you're running. Sort of, it means very, very little.
Yeah.
But Gear Seeker a strong card though. Is my main point. It's nice to see it in these glitters decks, and nice to see if it kind of goes a bit bigger. But yeah, pretty interesting deck.
Yeah, it's a weird one. There's no Seat of Synod in the deck, so
Yeah,
I don't know how sort of easy casting this Gear Seeker's gonna be. Obviously there's no whatever the Boros Bridge is called
Rustvale.
either. Rustvale Bridge. It's just 4 Resetide, 4 Silver Bluff, but then 4 Great Feathers and 4 Ancient Den. Which strikes me as a bit odd. I guess you need to be able to cast your Simps, so you need the red, and obviously you want to be able to cast the glitters. But it would be interesting to see if you could do a list like this in the blue-white glitters.
Yeah.
And just audible in the Gear Seekers. That would be quite interesting.
It's definitely an interesting take, and I like the idea of these going bigger sort of glitters decks where you don't having high threat density anyways, and then once you've exhausted their removal, your random affinity creatures or Glinthawks or whatever just kind of wear a glitters and then that's it, they're dead.
Yeah.
So I really like the idea of them. Obviously now with Serpent and obviously the normal Mirror Enforcer, definitely a cool way to take the deck, and it'll be interesting to see if people do, as you say, experiment with this with blue-white.
Yeah, I think just hitting a Serpent off Synth as well sounds like a bad time.
Yeah, especially with the amount of blue sources. I think that looking at this list, it looks even more heavily slanted on Springleaf Drum than the other original Jeskai Glitters, which are already really heavily reliant on Springleaf Drum.
It's sort of what makes me think that blue-white might be a shout with something like this,
Yeah.
where you've got you obviously got the Springleaf Drum engine, but it's sort of a bit turbocharged with the Ornithopter.
Yeah.
And then you're not really worried about flipping it to a synth. You can just draw it and play it out. Might be interesting.
I guess final touch on obviously Nick Norman again with the win with Gardens. Doesn't seem like much of a different list than he ran previously with the Miser Fungal Infection, still on Defile, Snuff Out, Spinning Darknesses, all that sort of stuff. Still on 4-1 split of Wellspring to Lembas. Yeah, pretty stock, but obviously this sort of even with the Troublemaker Roof in the side as well. Yeah, just overall great that he's obviously having success with his specific list, and I think Gardens is a good deck for that, where you get to put your own pizzazz on it and play it how you want to play it, and this list definitely works for him. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think my last thing is obviously there's back-to-back Flickertron top 8, which again is something we've not seen in a while, and I don't believe it was the same pilot.
No,
but I could be wrong.
No, it was RC Clint this time on the Sunday, but I don't think it was on the Saturday.
So yeah, Flickertron seems well placed if you can stomach all the clicks.
I think I'm just double checking now. I'm just doing a quick Control F for Urza. There was only the one pilot on both days. Yeah, it was Hampus and RC Clint, and one pilot each time.
Yeah, nice.
So pretty good going.
Yeah.
So
moving on, I guess.
Yep.
Also on the Sunday was the 32 challenge.
Yep.
Which was 44 players ended up entering. And as we've sort of come to expect, it's slightly, I'm gonna say slightly, it's very slanted towards the aggro favour.
Yep.
So first place was Kuldotha Red, second place was Blue White Glitters, third was Grixis Affinity, fourth was Blue Black Terror, fifth was Kuldotha Red, sixth was Jeskai FM, seventh was Gardens, eighth was Boros Glitters, and then the two near misses, ninth, again near miss was Rakdos Madness, and 10th was a second copy of Jeskai FM. Yeah, obviously a lot more slanted towards top end aggro than the other two challenges that we've just went through. but still pretty varied. Like it wasn't just dominated by Kuldotha, or even Glitters really. There was 8 unique decks in the top 10. Yeah, and just sweet to see the sort of variety in Pauper, even when it's sort of in a situation that this challenge puts you in, where if you're playing in the main challenge, you're double queuing, so you sort of want to be on a deck that you can easily double queue with.
Yeah, my only interesting thought is because of that, obviously the aggressive slant, which we'll kind of touch on percentages a little bit further down. I'm curious to see or understand how we ended up with obviously still getting Gardens and Jeskai FM in that sort of thing. I wonder if either these people missed the cutoff and ended up playing, or if a lot of people were saying not last week, the week before, that would have been 30 minutes apart until the top 8. They never actually had much crossover. So
Yeah.
you're basically finishing your last game as you're going into your next one, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I wonder if people then did try other decks to double queue with other decks like Gardens or like, and it'd be an interesting thought experiment, or like, because obviously we have the whole lists now. We can physically compare all pilots to see what they did double queue and who didn't. Be
Yeah.
interesting to see if how that ended up.
I guess the sort of the crossover argument only works if you're not playing something really slow in the first challenge, I guess. Because 30 minutes, like obviously, if you both take 15 minutes, there's still
Yeah,
another 20 minutes in that game one, and then
sure.
you're in the next challenge.
For sure.
But yeah, I am starting to wonder if people are also choosing to play this challenge rather than the other one. Like if you expect if you play a deck that's really good against the aggressive decks, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
well, I could just
Play
main the second challenge and it'll pay us off.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. Obviously, if you know everyone's going to be on aggressive decks, like, do you just play a deck that's good against aggro, and then effectively farm the top 8?
But yeah, it's odd. It sort of puts it in a weird situation, which I don't really like.
Yeah, it is a strange one. Like, you kind of already know what you're against almost, because looking at going through the lists of the top, like the whole challenge, basically 50% of the metagame was 2 aggressive decks, i.e. Glitters and Kuldotha, with 10 pilots each, which at 44 players, you're basically looking at half of the whole event is just people on aggro decks.
Yeah.
Which is pretty mental, really, to think about. But other than that, I don't think there was anything too exciting on the Sunday challenge, right? Because again, we've just got a very aggressively slanted. A lot of grinders doing well, which we've had throughout the whole weekend. And I don't think there was anything too out of the ordinary about the lists either. They're all very similar, right? I think
nothing particularly stood out to me. Obviously, it's a good variety that's getting in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing massively stood out.
I'm just trying to see if just having a quick, I guess, looking at this on the Saturday, there was the same. Oh no, there was nine pilots. Is that, yeah, 9 pilots on Kuldotha on the Saturday, which is the same, almost the same number of pilots as that Sunday.
But there was 30 more players.
Yes, but there's 30 more players.
Yeah.
So it's rather interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It'll be interesting to see as well if there was people that did play in just the second challenge, and if that is because the first challenge on the Sunday has basically consistently fired since they brought it back. So if the second challenge is just detracting people from playing in the first one and then putting a double queue opportunity up, is there any reason to keep it? Would be my thought, but we'll see. Hopefully they'll Daybreak will look at the data and come to a conclusion at some point.
Yeah. If I get time, I will take this away. If I do get time for next week's episode, I will actually look at the names and try and understand if there were double queuing or not. But it's a lot of obviously data to go through. I just need to obviously manually go through it. but it's definitely a interesting one for sure. Interesting thought experiment. Would you like to move on to the Pierre de Resistance?
Yeah. So the Northern Pauper Open, which was also on Sunday and had 64 players. First place was Mogwarts, piloted by someone called Teasdale MTG
He's an
that you might
absolute
have heard of.
He's a nobody.
Second place, Blue Black Fair. Third place, Gardens. Fourth place, Jeskai Ephemerate. Fifth place, Gardens. Sixth place was Ultratron, which I believe was Cali.
Yep.
Seventh place was Elves, and eighth place was Ultratron again. And then the two near misses, ninth was another copy of Elves, and 10th was Mono Blue Fair. I guess for my first comments on this, the event itself was super sweet.
Yeah.
It ran very well. Everything seemed to run on time. There was no sort of massive delays where you were waiting around. Everyone I played and or had conversations with while I was milling about, as I was playing Cold Author, so I had plenty of time to mill about. We're all really nice people. They're all fantastic to talk to. And it was great to sort of see how many different pauper communities had sort of come in parts to attend this event, and hear about how well they're doing sort of all over the UK as well, like Newcastle and London and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good event.
Yeah, I think one thing for me is if you are English and listen to this, you will understand that we as British do really, really not like to travel anything further than like an hour or two. So for a lot of people that will come from London, from was there some people from Scotland, I believe, as well?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like you're talking 5-6 hours here to travel to Leeds, which for us public transport sucks. So most of them will have drove. It's pretty good to see, and then also as you say, as you hear them, they're all lovely people and also thriving in their pauper community in their respective regions. It is
Yeah, yeah.
really awesome to see, and everyone's just super super friendly. One thing I will mention, what I do actually really like about this event, which Dan, the organizer, has obviously nailed on the head with the prize support. It's very much still has this competitive aspect where obviously people still want to do well and still want to try and win, but it's also got this kind of it doesn't feel like you just have this immense pressure of a judge call waiting on your head for accidentally
Yeah.
doing. It's just so chill and it makes everyone so friendly. It just absolutely mastered.
Yeah, I think everyone who was there because they love Pauper
Yeah.
first and foremost, and wanted to play in a big Pauper event. Um, there was no one there basically trying to grind prizes out who had just picked up the Pauper deck and picked the best deck that they've been
Yeah.
told online and was trying to run with that. Everyone wanted to be there, which was great.
Yeah, there was so many people that I spoke to as well that were, even if they were next to me or I was playing them, that had basically their friend or something had went to the last one and then decided to come along because they heard so many good things that it's just word of mouth and at these
Yeah.
sort of events is just absolutely immense. Like it was a fantastic event, as always. Yeah. Would you like to move into your experience, your tournament report almost of what you
Yeah. So
were going
we'll
on?
have a sort of a quick run through of my event, and then you can talk about yours, I guess.
Yeah.
My first round, or I guess some context. Obviously, I said before, I played Kuldotha, which was Selka's list. Super clean list. Basically, no fat. Everything's like trimmed down. My first round was against Jeskai Glitters, which I won 2-0. Game one, I basically just had a insane hand. Starting on turn one, Goblin Guide is just broken. And I think I killed them by turn four. And then
Standard.
game two, I kept a really good hand for Blast Runner with double Blast Runner. They had Ardent Recruit into a Acolyte, a Crimson Acolyte, but they only had one white source, so they weren't able to protect the Ardent Recruit. So I was able to burn that and then get through with the blast runners. They played another recruit again without the white sauce, so I was able to kill that and get through again. And essentially just killed them before they were able to stabilize with the acolyte. I think my first round was done in like eight minutes or 9 minutes or something like that. So I had a lot of time to go and have a look at what everyone else was playing.
Standard Jeskai experience. I have my colours sorted, but not enough to do what I want.
Yeah. He had every color but only one white sauce, and it just sort of hampered his draw, unfortunately.
Sounds about right.
Round 2 was against Blue Black Terror, which unfortunately I picked up my first loss. Game 1, I kept a really good hand, but it was a one-lander. And I essentially just never drew my second land for the next 10 draws.
Nicely done.
And then the turn I did was the turn after I would have still had enough time to kill them. So I lost that game 1. Game 2, I just kept a really solid opener and just ran through them. And then game 3, I got him into a position where I could attack for lethal through a terror and a fangs and a counterspell, and he had 4 mana up. He had the fangs and he had the elemental blast to kill one of my guys, and then he also had a ghastly demise. So he had 3 answers in his 4 mana, which was tough. And then the following turn, I had enough burn to chain together to kill him, but he also had a counter spell. So unfortunately, that ended up me losing that game on 1 life. So I lost that 1-2. Round 3, I was against Dredge, which was against Kieran, who organises the Newcastle Pauper Leagues. Game 1, I basically just had a nut draw with double Blast Runner, and again killed him on turn 4 before he could really do anything.
Didn't find an Autobahn in time, clearly.
Yeah, well, but on his turn 3, I was on the play, so on his turn 3, you're not, the bone's not doing much, unfortunately. No. And then game 2, I had a Tomb Raider plus double relic start, which meant I was able to get quite a lot of damage through before he could find an Ancient Grudge to actually start abusing his graveyard. And then essentially, as soon as he grudged me, I just quad burn spelled him the next turn. Which, unfortunate not to see Dredge do Dredge things, but I'm not going to complain at a win. Round 4 was against Green Black Campfire Gardens. Game 1, I won just pretty handily through a recurred. I think it recurred Crypt Rats 3 times. But I was able to just keep chipping him away. I never saw Campfire game 1, so it meant I didn't board in Smash the Smithereens. Game 2, I kept a good hand, but again, it was a one-lander that unfortunately stalled out for, I think, 6 or 7 turns before I found my second land. When I did find it, I played it before I played my synth, which was obviously a really bad mistake. My synth then flipped a Great Furnace, which I lost, and then that meant I essentially missed next turn being able to Kuldorf the Bushwhacker him to, I think, like 5. Which, if I get that off, I basically swing the game and can burn spell him the next turn. So I ended up losing that, unfortunately, due to that misplay, which was pretty rough. And then game 3, I bodied in my smashes, which managed to get his first campfire. But then he was able to chain like multiple spinning darknesses into my guys and then cast a troll, which I had to burn out to get through. And then he cast another troll, and I had no cards left and died. That was my second loss. So I was 2-2. My round 5 was against Mono Blue Terror. Game 1, we both mulled to 5. But thankfully, Tomb Raider essentially just carried my entire game. until I got to a position where I could wait for them to tap out for a threat and then double galv them with Metalcraft. Game 2, I got Mono Blue Terrored, and on turn 3, just played 2 Terrors. And I died pretty handily to that. And then game 3, I kept a pretty decent hand with access to Pyroblast and some threats. But my opponent kept I guess what I would also call a Terror hand, which is a one-lander with a bunch of cantrips. His cantrips immediately milled 2 lands. Then he got Brainstorm locked and never drew a second land.
Jeez.
So I ended up winning that game 2-1, or that match 2-1. And then my final round was against Jeskai Ephemerate, which was a very odd Jeskai Ephemerate list. Game 1 had a solid Kuldotha draw. My Kuldotha goblins got Echo and Truth. So I was like, oh, okay. A main deck.
Strange.
But by the time he'd found the Echo and Truth and the untapped lands to cast it, I was able to basically do enough damage that I could burn them out. And then game 2 was a pretty grindy game of essentially me just chipping away. I put myself into a point where he tapped out and I could Chain Lightning low. So I think he ended up on 3 before he stabilized with a Mystic and a Kenku. But then I had a couple of burn spells in hand, one of which was a Seal of Fire, which obviously wasn't lethal. So I played that first and he tapped out a counter the Seal of Fire. So I was like, okay, I'll Chain Lightning your face. So yeah, ended up 4-2. Some very close games. Mainly the Terror and the Gardens one. I think the Gardens one is my only main mistake. I think the keep against the Terror and the one-lander keep against Gardens, I would still keep now. They were just really good hands. Just variance. Sometimes you don't get to that second land, unfortunately, when you're playing 17.
Yeah. Variance is definitely real and it definitely happens. Unfortunate, obviously, as you say, the unfortunate misplay with the Campfire Gardens, obviously the ordering of synth is some things that obviously, especially over time, are happen. Like obviously, to you now, it'll be pretty much second nature. But obviously, you are playing 50-minute. Well, you're not playing 50-minute rounds. You're playing 10-minute rounds. But you know, it happens for sure.
But yeah, I think after obviously a 6-round day and however many games, it was probably the only thing that I'd picked up that I think was misplayed. I think my play other than that was pretty solid, so I'm not too fussed about it. It's obviously annoying and I won't do it again.
Yeah.
But I was happy with my play for the most part.
Yeah, for sure, and that's the main thing. As long as you're happy with how you played, like on the day, that's all that matters. I remember the last one. Obviously, I played Gardens and I didn't do particularly well. Overall, throughout the day, I wasn't very happy with how I played. I just felt unprepared and walked into a lot of baits and things like that. So it's definitely annoying when you do pick up these misplays, but obviously if it's only the one, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Moving on to, I guess, my main one is, I will touch on it, like, to some extent. So, for those who don't know, I've obviously started Patreon. I have wrote a very, very, very detailed play-by-play almost tournament report, which I have had feedback that is very good and very detailed, which I'm quite grateful of, and so please check that out. But I will touch on, obviously, how my experience went, but not too much to take away from, obviously, my patrons.
It's also very cheap to join his Patreon if you want to join it.
Yes, so you can check out that tournament report for as little as, I believe, £4, and there is an even cheaper support for, I think, £1. So yeah, I do recommend checking it out. If I do say so myself, it's effectively like £1 an article because there's like 4 in a month, and so it's very, very cheap, and I really do recommend it. It does have a sideboard guide, which I know people do like to check out, so just to chill out a little bit. Anyways, going on to the tournament report, or the event and how it went. So I ended up going 5-1. Is that how you say it? So 5 wins, 0 losses, and a draw. Again, as I said, I was happy with the deck. I was just a bit concerned about red, which I ended up avoiding, as I said, there was only 2 pilots, which was Reese and obviously another player. I versed first round. I versed Walls, which was I'd say fairly easy matchup. I do think if you are not on, I guess for context, I was playing Hamuda's list with 2 changes. I had cut the Faithless Luton and I cut a Fanatical Offering for 2 Demand Answers. And then I changed the sideboard to sort of incorporate having more game against Kuldotha. So I do think if you are not on Hamuda's list with Mesmeric Fiends in the main, I do think this sort of matchup is quite difficult because being able to just snipe the combo piece, even if it makes them delay a turn, is mostly all you need. And the thing I really do like about this deck is a lot of in that matchup as well, there's a lot of times like in 2 turns time, for example, the card you've nabbed will be useless to them because they've already got access to it. For main example, like Axebane Guardian, it's really good at obviously nabbing Axebane Guardian. You cut the colours off for 2 turns until they drift or shield or whatever to find the other copy, and then they play it, and then you give them another one. It's like, okay, I don't need this anymore. It's just an extra mana source for the other one, which effectively buys them time to be able to just kill them, because that's all. At the end of the day, you are a combo v combo deck. It is just a straight up race. Luckily, they basically have 0 interaction with you, so it's just a straight up race where you have interaction against them. Definitely a sweet one. Game round 2, I was against Elves. Elves, it was the guy that came 9th, I believe. I lost game 1 to a top deck Timber Watch Elf with a Crash and Drawbridge in play. That was a bit wounding, I'm not gonna lie to you. And then games 2 and 3, I basically just became a control deck with Breath Weapons and Abrades and things like that, and took over the game from there.
There was quite a lot of Elves at this event, which was quite interesting to see. I believe it was the 2nd most played deck outside of Glitters, which is essentially like 2 decks.
So yeah, if you combine the Glitters together, I think it was 7 pilots, which was 10% of the whole event. And then Elves had 5 pilots at 7%. So definitely a lot of Elves. I guess one thing that was noted, there was a Chester event a few months back, which obviously Reese and a guy from West Coast Games went to. I believe Elves won that event.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
So maybe that obviously had an impact on how much Elves was represented. Or just people just like Elves is also another thing. So, yeah, so I ended up beating Elves 2-1, basically losing game 1. Round 3, I versed Mono Blue Fair, which is, I think it's a really good matchup. It's a great matchup, to be fair. It's just very grindy and trying to find your window with Mogwarts. I often come to the conclusion in general with Mogwarts, you don't verse. I have to look at it as a perspective. You don't verse decks, you verse colours. Is a weird way of looking at it. So I tend to think of it. So if I'm against Blue X, like say Mono Blue, okay, I only have Hydroblast. I only have Counterspell to worry about. Everything else doesn't really matter. Like I don't care if the Terror in. I don't care if the Spell Sprite in. All that sort of stuff. I just know these are the cards I need to beat. And if I'm against Red, okay, I need Lightning Bolt, Galv Blast. These are the cards I'm bothered. I'm not bothered if they are Jeskai or whatever, and that's kind of the way I try to look at it. Obviously, that's just a very high level sense, but that kind of dictates how I'm boarding more than how I'm playing, if that makes sense. So I do think Mono Blue is a pretty good matchup, and once you understand what you've got to contend with, it's not bad. So was pretty grindy, but ended up winning that one. What was next? I versed Flickertron. That was a fun one. Definitely a grindy matchup again, but I think as well, this is overall I played pretty tight in this event. But I do think this was the only matchup I made a mistake, and it was game 2, where they tapped out for an unwind, and I went really hard on digging for a red Elemental Blast, and basically whiffed there. Yeah. So. And then I think finally after that, my next round was Jeskai Ephemerate, which was actually the fastest game I played, to be fair. I think I came over to you while you were playing. I was like, what are you doing? Why are you... Because you were still playing at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think it took like 13 minutes. Both of us were playing incredibly fast. And also, Yeah, I just had the combo really early on, and had the interaction, so that was pretty cool. And then the 6th round was against Blue Black Fair. We were both the only players on 5-0 at that point. I think we were the last two.
Yeah.
Game 1 took 35 minutes, and I think I had like 18 cards left. I did end up winning that game, but ultimately it was like the best game of Magic I've ever had in a very, very, very long time. And kudos to I can't remember Adam. Kudos to Adam, because that was honestly an incredible game of Magic, and I honestly wish I had that on camera. I'd show that to my child when he was older. Like, this is the best game of Magic I've ever played. I won't go into too much detail because, to be fair, that's a big piece in the Patreon. But it did end up, obviously, it was just amazing game, to be honest. Game 2 was basically, I think, ended up losing that due to standard fairy things, and there was only basically 20 seconds left on the clock, so basically ended up going to time.
Yeah, from Spectator, and obviously the game 2, we just seem to have so many answers, as Blue Black Fair tends to do. You sort of set up quite a few times to try and get through, but yeah, there was just more answers on top of answers.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think that's where I think the Blue Black Fair sort of is the most problematic one.
Yeah.
And it's also
I wish I would seen the final game 3 though, because you did draw hands and like start playing the game 3 in turns.
We did, yeah.
Obviously, you can win in turns anyway. But your hand was just like insane.
Yeah.
You obviously didn't have the straight combo, but it was just like, yeah, if this goes on, this hand's just winning.
Yeah, I put myself in a position where if I drew the last piece, I think was it like a putrid gullet or something.
Yeah,
I could have won. Because at this point the opponent's obviously just keeping any hand. I think they had like 2 hydros or something, and were tapped out for like 2 fairies or something stupid. I can't remember, but so I had the window to just go off, and I was literally like a putrid goblin away, and I put myself in a position to maximize that because it was my turn 3, I think. So like my turn 3 was my last turn, so but it didn't end up getting there, which was unfortunate because I don't like the idea of ending on a draw and tiebreakers and stuff. But
yeah,
it was definitely a good one, and I really do recommend, even if I do say so myself, checking out the Patreon, because it really does go in detail of what my thought process is, almost on a turn by turn basis. Because I feel sorry for the opponents. I did end up writing like extensive notes on my life pad as I was going, so which allowed me to do that. But really great event, fantastic, and I felt like I needed this win to justify my existence in me playing Magic for sure, which I obviously said to yourself. And I'm glad I did it with Mogwarts. Mogwarts is a deck that I've flickered in and out of playing for a long time, and it's definitely a sweet, sweet deck. Hard one to play, if I do say so myself, but definitely good as hell.
Yeah. You say it went to tiebreakers as well, which it did, but it wasn't particularly close.
Yeah.
Like, your tiebreakers were by far the best tiebreakers in the event.
Yeah.
By like, I think it was like 20% above everyone else's.
Yeah, I think except Kali, I think everyone else in the top 8 was my opponents. And a lot of them came up to me and was like, you were my only loss or whatever, like going into the last round. So I'm not surprised by that, to be honest. But yeah, it was definitely cool to see. Definitely cool to play out all these games. Shame that Kali didn't end up doing, like, he did top 8, but I think he ended up going, was it 4-1-1?
Yeah, I think the draw was rough as well, because I think he had essentially combo for the next turn, but just ran out of time to play it.
Yeah, because I think when we seen it, it was manually makeshift munition, retriever,
like
looping.
Yeah.
But I think the problem was he couldn't see the timer, so he didn't know how long was left in the time till turns was called. And I think he made a mistake on 2 things, like his scries or something for Candy Trail, which effectively it didn't stop him comboing, or it didn't stop him getting what he needed. It just meant he needed more time. Yeah, take more time to find them, which then obviously cost him the turn probably. Which is pretty unfortunate, but it is what it is. The world of Paper is too used to the chess clock.
Paper confirmed harder than Mordor.
For sure. But yeah, it was a really great event. Really versatile event as well. Just for some numbers, like when obviously people are saying that Glitters was obviously the most represented deck, with 7 pilots, but that's across 2 different archetypes. It's both Jeskai and Blue White put
Blue-white.
together. Then we had Elves, Corgate, Boros Synth, and Gardens all on 5 pilots each. So, which was pretty good going. Like, that's mental to me. Like, that those 4 decks being the second most tied for the second most played deck is mad. I wouldn't have expected Boros Synth and Elves to be up there in the second most played deck. And then just for reference, Cold Author was probably one of, apart from the odd 1 pilot decks, there's only 2 people playing this deck.
Yeah.
One including yourself.
Very unexpected.
Yeah, especially from memory last time we played, but last time we went, there was a lot of red and a lot of I'm talking like 7 pilots, I think, for like Gardens and red. But that was pre Swift Spear ban, right?
Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of red in general though. Like there was 2 Cold Author, including myself, but there was also there was 1 Kiln Fiend and 1 Pinger Burn.
Yeah.
And that was like the extent of the red decks. Like that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty mental, really, to be fair, because even like there wasn't even that much like Boros, for example, like Boros other decks. There was the other guy that came with us was playing Boros Wildfire. There was no other Boros Glitters. There was like 2 Tribe players.
Tribe was as represented as Cold Author was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was pretty insane to see the diversity, to be fair. I don't really know what else, like Ultratron, again, a deck that we don't see a lot, but obviously was shown by A, Kali, and B, obviously another pilot, so there was at least the same amount as Cold Author, but the deck obviously does really well in paper compared to online generally. Unless you're Kali, then it's worse in paper than online. Like the only pilot ever to find it harder, but yeah, there was 4% Ultratron, which is basically
the 2 pilots.
Oh yeah, I'm just trying to check. Yeah, it was 2 pilots.
Yeah, and I believe the second pilot, I think he was called Cody, had like made an app for playing Ultratron. Like it like tracks all the stuff you do in Ultratron. Callie was telling me about it. It's like it seemed pretty cool. We'll have to see if we can find that and link it or something.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know this. This was the problem. Most of my games didn't go to time, but almost went to time. So by the time I got up, grabbed a drink, went to the toilet, it was next round.
Yeah.
Apart from 1 round, where I spent my spare time asking Reese where he'd gone, and then went and got baby formula. So that was the extent of my spare time. Yeah. Pretty sweet event. Highly recommend if you are in the country. Please do recommend going because it is great. Yeah. Would you like to move on to some shout-outs?
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, shout out to myself for obviously being... I'm joking. No, but seriously, shout out to all the grinders for the weekend. It was a very heavy grinder weekend, doing really well. We had Hamuda obviously with Mogwarts, Ritual Sinkhole again with Turbo Fog, Carrot Eater rocking it with Corgate, Weber, not really a grinder, but finally decided to not play fair and actually did well, like Shock Horror.
It pays to not play Blue Black Fair.
Look at that, unless you're Bako.
Yeah.
Only exception. Shout out to Discover N for even doing it with White Weenie as well, coming 10th. Shout out to Nick Norman for the win with Gardens. Luffy with Grixis Affinity. And Andreas or Eco Baron with the Mono Red on the Sunday. Just all round great for grinders, yeah?
Yeah.
Next one, obviously shout out to Pauper Dan for running such a sweet event at the Northern Pauper Open in Leeds. Just absolutely fantastic, as Reece already mentioned. Already ran on time, all smooth. They had player mats. They had like everything you needed there. It was just a great event. And final shout out, obviously, to Callie or Jacob or Saden Reagan, whatever you want to call him, for making the trek to the Northern Pauper Open. Obviously, he didn't fly over specifically for it, but was in the country and did a 10-hour round trip to go to it.
It was a long drive.
So, definitely definitely a sweet one. Great to finally meet him as well. Nicer in person. Not saying that he's not nice online, but he's nicer in person. Just to throw that out there. Yeah. Would you like to move on to hot takes?
Yeah. So our hot takes from last week, which were actually from the week before, because last week sort of got shafted by Magic Online exploding. My first one was that we would see a low number of MKM cards in the top 8, which I think, to be fair, was true. There was a couple of demand answers, but I don't even think they were in the top 8. They were in the Black Red Burns, right, as one-offs, or Black Red Madness, which were in like 10th. And there was a few novice inspectors, but yeah, apart from that, not a lot.
Pretty much. Mine from last week was that we would have a full aggro top 8. I was obviously aiming towards the Sunday small challenge. That was not the case. We were close. We had 5 out of 8. But again, the 3 non-aggro decks were definitely there to farm the aggro matchups because it was Gardens and a Fem and things like that. For sure.
And my last one from last week was another prayer to the Dredge gods that Dredge would once again top 8, and it didn't at all.
Kirby's ran out of luck, and he's too busy playing with his rites of initiation to bother top 8 with Dredge again. My last one was Demand Answers will be the only MKM card in the top 16 next week. Not really. Everyone's playing Novice Inspector. Card is good to no one's surprise.
And not even just as splits, obviously there was a split in the Jeskai glitters.
Yeah.
But most other stuff was just in addition to Thraben Inspector.
Yeah. Like, I think I expected like 6 copies, like 2 extra or whatever. But a lot of them were like 7 or 8. Like the White Weenie ran 7, and then pretty much after that it was all 8.
Yeah.
Full Thraben Inspector be a good card.
Yeah, very. So hot takes for next week.
Yep.
My first one is a bit of a weird one, I guess. It's that we'll see more challenges that have top 8s with heavy biases. So we've seen that combo challenge for the Saturday challenge, which was really heavy on combo. So we'll see really heavy aggro, combo, or control challenges.
Yeah, that makes sense. To be fair, that I like that take because obviously they're not necessarily next Saturday might not necessarily be combo again, but it will definitely. It seems like they do seem to have a bias of what gets through into the top 8. My next one is not myself, by the way. I'm not like so absolutely egotistical, but I do think Mogwarts will be played more next week, and it's not to do with myself again. It's to do with Hamuda's absolute tear. I think obviously the last 3 was it like a win, and a top 8 the week before those 2, I think, or something like that. Like obviously being an absolute tear with Mogwarts, with basically the exact same list both times. And it kind of shows to me on the Sunday small challenge, I think 3 players were playing Mogwarts, his exact list that he won with. So hopefully people are picking it up to try and play it because it is definitely a fun deck to play. I really do like it.
We're going to go to war on my second challenge. I've said that Hamuda will take a day off next week and no Mogwarts will be in the top 8.
Yeah, that's fair. He might take a day off. He could. I don't think he wants to.
I have no insider information if he's taking a day off or not.
But... I guess we'll just have to wait and see. My last one is that Flickertron will pick up in popularity, not just... Obviously, it has had a good weekend this weekend with 1 pilot each and both top 8 in. But I do think more people will actually pick it up because they are sadistic and really like clicking.
Yeah, I think it's an easy sell as well when you see, oh, look, it's in this top 8. Oh, look, it's in this top 8. It's like, oh, I may as well try it out at this point.
Yeah. And people seem to like Tron, like, regardless what it's doing, if it's Monster, if it's Flicker, if it's Mono Red. People just like having big lots of mana doing stuff. So, yeah. Would you like to add anything else?
No, I think that's it from me for this week. This extremely long episode.
Yeah. Not too bad. I think we managed to condense it, but we've definitely had a lot of content to cover for sure. And it's definitely been sweet going over, obviously, Reese's in-depth tournament report, all the double Sunday challenges, the Mogwarts win from Hamuda, and just a great all-round event from the Northern Pauper Open, really. So, thank you guys for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please do not forget to share it with your friends, your family, and your fellow something.
Pauper community.
Just share it with everyone in your Pauper community. Let's be honest. It has been great. And just for reference, since Casting Commons has also been done, we have 100% win rate from the Northern Pauper Open. Just to show that
there. For the ones we've attended.
Yeah, that's all that counts. Exactly. Everyone we've attended, we bring a trophy home. Usually it's Reese, but this time it was me. Let's go! That is all from us at Casting Commons. Until next time, do not forget to stay hydrated. Peace!
See ya.